Well, many of you navigating this unemployment maze are not just frustrated, but maybe a bit frightened that your promised benefits could run out. On your side, Jocelyn Howard tells us about a federal program moving through the legislature now that may be of help in the future.
The CARES Act, which provides $600 of federal unemployment benefits to those who are unemployed, is set to expire in July. But a new program called the HEROES Act may just be what saves those who are fighting this unemployment battle.
We really need at least one more big relief package to help with this COVID-19 response.
U.S. Representative Darren Soto sees the pain plaguing Floridians, thousands with empty pockets and no hope for the future.
It's a lifeline for millions of Floridians who have applied, many of whom still haven't received their first set of checks yet.
The HEROES Act would extend the $600 in weekly federal unemployment benefits through January of 2021. It was approved by the U.S. House of Representatives and is now pending in the Senate. Flight attendant Mary Jackson has been fighting for unemployment benefits since March, and just like many Floridians, her claim is full of glitches and she can't get through to DEO.
It's very frustrating to not know what's going to happen.
She had to move out of her apartment in Fort Lauderdale, and she's struggling to pay her car insurance.
I had to get food stamps too. I never thought that, ever thought that I would be in this position.
Jackson is just hoping the Senate will pass at least something that will help save her from drowning in bills.
I think there's so many people in this position right now because it's just, who knew that all this was going to happen?
Jocelyn Howard, First Coast News, on your side.